Let's talk about how to conduct an assessment with your client as a personal trainer to help you grow your business. Feel free to use whatever tips you want from this video, and you can leave out the stuff you don't want to utilize. You can also customize whatever process of the assessment you would like that is better suited to you as a personal trainer. This is just the process that has worked for me and is effective for me, in my business. When your client walks in for an assessment, there are two things I like to do beforehand. Firstly, you want to make sure you either have a notebook, a clipboard, or an iPad with you to take notes during an assessment. Trust me when I tell you these notes come in handy, especially after you do your price presentation. Number two, either I will stand at reception or at the front when I'm waiting for my client, because most people who are coming in are a little bit nervous. If not, I will let the reception know that this person is coming in. Please make sure you have them seated and wait for me. And if I'm with a client beforehand, I will make sure I'm not running late and I'm not rushing to get to the assessment. You want to prioritize the assessment. You also need to prioritize the other people you are training. However, showing up 15 minutes late while the person is sitting there is not going to speak well for you. When I come to introduce myself, I'll say, "Hi, I'm Sheba, I'm your personal trainer. We're going to just sit down and have a conversation before we go out on the floor. Is that okay?" And they'll say, "Yeah, that's fine," right? So some people will say, "No, can we go on the floor first?" But that's almost never happened. So I like to sit down with the client, get to know them a little bit, get to know their background, their history, before I take them out on the floor and just start doing exercises. This is the point at which I will familiarize myself with them, their preceding history, training, injuries, etc. Trust me when I tell you, in this process, it's really important that you take notes. So the first thing I will do is I will start talking to them about their basic health and fitness goals. So I'll say, "What brings you in today? How can I help you?" I'll let them talk a little bit and I say, "Okay, what do you think are your fitness goals at the moment? Do you have any short-term goals? Do you have long-term goals?" Right? The other thing I like to ask is, how long have you been thinking about coming into the gym? What has prevented you from coming in for this long? And what has been the motivating factor that brought you into the gym today? You want to understand as much of their side of the story as possible, whether they've had personal issues, financial issues. It helps if you get to know them a little bit more. The other thing I like to ask is, do you have any pre-existing injuries I need to know about? Do you have any existing pain or any nagging issues that you want me to know before we go out on the floor? After this, I like to say, "Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day life." Right? What is your routine like? What kind of job do you have? Most people have very sedentary jobs, and so being fit and moving is a big part of why they're in the gym that day. They want to start moving, they want to feel more energetic, they feel very lethargic in their routine or their lifestyle. So understanding the kind of job they have can also really help you train the client better. You might have people who have a lot more active jobs, people who are nurses or they work as civil servants, people who are first responders, etc. However, any question you ask has an intention. You are trying to understand the client, the perspective, their lifestyle to be able to better train them. Once I've gone over the basics with the client, I will start asking them questions about their lifestyle. Is there anything in your lifestyle that you really would like to change? Do you find you drink a lot? Do you go out a lot? This is also their opportunity to tell you if they eat out frequently. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I hate that I go to the mall, or I grab food from the food court often. I drink a lot of coffee. These are things I really want to change." Okay, how much water do you think you drink in a day? Okay, right? You're trying to understand them as a trainer as much as possible. The other questions I like to ask them are about their daily food intake habits. So if it's later on in the day, I'll ask them a question like, "What have you eaten all day today?" Or "What did you eat yesterday?" Can you tell me a typical day, of eating for you? The funny thing is, more often than not, clients will tell me, oh, today's just not a good day. It's my son's birthday. And yesterday was just chaos because I was preparing for my son's birthday. And I'll say, don't worry, I'm not judging you. I just want to understand how you eat so we can better address that and improve that to the best of our abilities to get you on the right track. I am not judging you. But there's always something. Oh, it was my thing today and I'm just like really stressed out right now. It's all good. The goal is just to kind of let them know that eating is a big part of their fitness journey as well. So you want them to kind of talk openly and freely with you. And a lot of these things can be conversations that can kind of soften the mood a little bit and make the conversations a little bit more comfortable. Ultimately, that is what you want. You want the client to feel comfortable with you and safe with you. So getting them to open up about themselves, their routine, their lifestyle is important. But these are also crucial points that you come back to after you do your price presentation. So now you know about their health and fitness goals. You know if they have any pre-existing injuries. You know about their day-to-day lifestyle. You know if they're going out in a week a lot or they're eating out frequently. You know how they're eating in a day, if they're consuming water. Other questions you can ask them are about their smoking habits, which could be weed or cigarettes, anything that you feel like is important and you need to know as a trainer to help them. A heavy smoker obviously will not be able to do as much cardiovascular training. Maybe they have shitty lungs. So these are really important things that you need to know, and they can really help you understand the person. I cannot say this enough. It's very important that you understand the person because you're providing them with personal training. So it's personalized to them and their goals. Once we are done the conversation, this is the point where I let the person talk as much as possible. While I am the one asking questions, I am not doing much talking in terms of filling in the gaps or trying to help them understand themselves a little bit more. I'm letting them explain their side, who they are, what their background is to me. Another thing I do like to know is if they have had a personal trainer in the past, if they stopped training with the trainer, what their reason was, or if they had a bad experience, a great experience, what made it good or bad, etc. as well. So let the client talk as much as possible. Your turn will come as well, but this is their opportunity to talk. Once we've done the talking portion, which can take anywhere between half an hour to an hour, or even longer depending on what your personality is like, I find I end up sitting with clients for up to 2 hours with them just talking. My first assessment was almost 4 hours long, and she did end up training with me for over a year. However, I did not realize that so much time had gone by, and I was just very interested in hearing all of her stories. It's up to you. It depends on if you have a client afterwards, if you have other commitments. If you do have other commitments, just make sure you keep tabs on time. Ideally, I like to plan 2 hours for an assessment, so I won't book anyone in that 2-hour window. This way, if I'm done early, that's fine. However, if I'm going over an hour, I'm not stressing out about canceling or rescheduling other clients. After we're done all the chit chat, the client has done their bit and told me about themselves, I'll say, okay, now I know a lot about you. I feel even more acquainted with you as a trainer. I'm excited to get to know you, on the floor and see what you're like in movement. So I'll take them out on the floor and I'll run an assessment. If you work for a company that already has a protocol in terms of how the assessment needs to be conducted, then make sure you follow that. For me, because I do my own business, I like to do my own assessment. The way that I like to do my assessment is firstly, I will start with a squat. I'll say, okay, just do bodyweight squats. Don't worry about the reps. You don't have to count. I'm not going to fix anything. I'm not judging. I just want to see how you move or what you think a squat should look like. I'll let them do 10 to 12 squats. I'll kind of like circle them, walk around, assess everything, and I'll say, okay, that's enough. I'll make a few adjustments based on what I think needs to be fixed, just in that moment. There's no added resistance. It's just body weight. I'll say, okay, maybe move your feet out a little bit. If the person is a beginner, I'll maybe bring in a box and use that as a tool and say, okay, let's use this to help you better gauge where to move your hips, etc. I'll get them to do the squat again. However, this time I will start saying out a few cues as they're squatting. Make sure you're breathing in as you're going down. Drive through the floor, really focus on squeezing your glutes. After this is done, maybe I'll get them to do 2 to 3 sets, adjusting a few things in every set. How did that feel, right? I'll ask them, did you feel a difference? I'll get their feedback and they'll say, oh yeah, that was really good. I felt it more in my butt or whatever. That's great, okay? So our goal is to help improve your movement patterns, to help improve the mechanics of the way you do a lift so we can get you stronger and closer to that goal, right? I'll revert back to the conversation and say, yeah, you said you wanted to build a bigger booty and a squat is a big part of that. So it's good we got this out of the way. Then I'll move on to a hip hinge, i.e. a deadlift. Again, I'm not introducing any load here. Maybe I'll give them a dowel or I'll just get them to put their hands on their thighs and I'll say, can you demonstrate a hip hinge to me or pretend you're holding weight and show me how you would deadlift. If the client has more experience lifting, maybe I'll give them dumbbells or kettlebells, never a bar, and I'll say, show me your deadlift. Same protocol. I walk around, I make a few adjustments mentally, I get them to stop and I say, okay, let's change a few things around, maybe move your hips back, feet closer, chest out, head down, etc. Get them to do a couple of sets that way. After this, I will do a simple core test. Plank or side plank for me is the best. You want to see how they hold themselves in that position, what their body positioning is like, if they're shaking, if they can hold it for at least 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'll say, okay, I have all the information I need. The other 2 things I will implement sometimes are upper body mobility drills just to see what their shoulder mobility is like, their thoracic mobility is like, or body stability or balance, such as a bird dog. So I kind of want to get a good idea of where their body's at. The goal is not to treat them like they're auditioning for The Biggest Loser, but to understand their bodies, their movements, and their mechanics so I know what I need to fix or address to better get them to where they want to be. You do not want your client to feel like a loser. You don't want them to feel like they can't do anything. Compliment the things that they are doing really well, give them a lot of instant feedback, and keep adjusting the things that need to be adjusted, but don't overwhelm them. Once the assessment part is done, you say, okay, let's go back and sit down and I'm going to give you some more feedback. That's when you can start talking. When they're doing the physical assessment and the exercises, keep your feedback to a minimum. Just give them the basic cues that they need to improve the lift. As you're walking back, tell them they did a great job, ask them how they're feeling. Sometimes I say, okay, is that what you thought we would be doing today? Once I go and sit down with the client, I say, okay, Sarah or Christopher or whatever. I have all the information I need. Not only do I know where you want to be, but I know how to get you there. So then I start mapping out the process in which I will take them from where they are now, physically, mentally, etc., to where they want to be in a year. I like to map out at least a year of training and explain how that process will be conducted. If you have been training for a long time, you know if you want to succeed in your training goals, you have to program yourself efficiently and realistically. So programming your clients to succeed is just as important. The way you program your clients will be dependent on who they are, what their background or experiences, etc., as well as where they want to be. You want to get them as close to where they want to be in that year. You might be able to get them there sooner, but then you want to show them how that can be maintained. Each training cycle will run anywhere between 2 to 3 months. If this is something you want me to get into in detail, I can do that. Just let me know down below. But the goal is to run 2 to 3 month cycles and show them how each cycle will be beneficial to helping them improve their strength, their endurance, their mobility, rehabilitation, injury, etc. Okay? Once you have outlined that year to them, the other things you want to include in that are maybe pounds of weight they're losing per week, how many that will total up to, and make sure you explain that the weight that they lose is of fat. It's not necessarily weight on the scale. Again, these are details we can get into in another video. However, you can explain that to them. You can explain the elements you would like to include, meal prep, monthly weigh-ins. Once you have done that, you're going to show them, how does that look? What do you think, right? And they'll say, oh, a year, that's a really long time. Some people might say, oh, that looks great, whatever. And now they're ready for the price presentation. If your gym has predetermined prices, please make sure you are confident in asking people to pay you that much money for training. If you have your own prices, make sure you are confident with those prices as well, or your rates if you have packages, whatever. Let your client know what the price is. Normally, I like to write it down on the same piece of paper and circle it, right? I'll say, okay, so training will be $300 a week, circle, done, okay? Some people will say, oh, that's a lot of money, whatever. The most important thing is once you have done the price presentation and you tell your client the price, let them process it. Do not interrupt that silent period by trying to kind of be like, oh, we have other options. There's also boot camps. No. Show them the training program. Tell them what the cost is and let them kind of marinate for a minute or two. And most people will say, okay, that's good. I can do that. Some people will say, that's a lot of money. What if we just train once a week? Revert back to those initial notes. So you told me, losing the 100 pounds in a year is very important to you. However, you also said you were drinking up to 5 cups of coffee at Starbucks a day. All we need to do is redirect your spending habits at Starbucks and try and get you to train and spend that money here. Let's cut back on eating out, drinking coffees at Starbucks, and spend that money towards something that will be more fruitful long term, right? You need that information that you've had in the conversation prior to help sell your service. So it's all about getting them to realize that ultimately it does require sacrifice to train with you. However, those sacrifices are really worth it in the end because they're helping them feel happy about themselves. It's helping them emotionally. It's helping their mental health. You're helping them physically feel better about themselves. And while all it takes is sacrificing 1 cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee a day, it's really going to be worth it in the long run. Now, let's say the client says, oh, I just don't have any time. Maybe I should wait until January to start. You want to remind them, look, you've been waiting 6 months to start. You finally made it into the gym today. I know this seems like a lot of money, but trust me when I tell you it's definitely going to be worth it, right? Don't keep waiting because then we're getting further and further from your goals. You said your daughter's getting married in June. Let's not take away this next 2-month period from your training to help you lose that weight. We're looking at 1 pound or 2 pounds a week. That's like 8 weeks of training. Do we really want to sacrifice that, right? Let's get started right away. Your goal is not to be pushy. It's not to coerce the person to train with you. It is to show them the value in training with you. They showed up, they did the assessment, they had a great time, and you're using all those points from the introductory conversation to help build your case and show the client the value in training with you and why the objections or excuses, if you will, are really not worth it when it comes to them feeling good about themselves long term. Nancy, you said when you stand in front of that mirror a year from now, you talk to me about how you would feel about yourself. Let's not take away from that. Let's start right away. Now, if they still sort of keep coming back at you with objections, this is where you can show them other options. Okay, if you're not able to afford 3 times a week, let's start with 2 times a week. Then show them the rates there, let them kind of figure it out. And generally, you will find most people will end up signing up with you. The people who are really not interested or just are full of excuses, don't waste too much energy on that. Do your level best and let them kind of come back to you when they're ready. The last point I want to say when it comes to overcoming objections is some people will say, can I take this home to my partner, my mom, my dad, blah, blah, blah. Tell them, look, instead of you taking this home to your parents, why don't you bring in your significant other or your parents to the gym tomorrow or tonight or whatever, and I can explain to them how this works. I think it's better if we sit and talk as a group instead of you just taking this home. Ultimately, they were not here for the full assessment, so I don't want them to miss out on the big picture. So is there a time that works for them? And we can all sit down together and talk about it. The goal is not to let them leave with just a piece of paper that says $400 on it, because they're going to go home and their family's going to be like, $400? No. Right? You showed them the value in your training, that hour you spent with them. And for their family or their significant other to see that, you would need to talk to them as well. Sometimes people will say no, but often I find that people do manage to bring in their significant others or their parents with them. In my case, when that has happened a few times, the significant other as well as the family has wound up also signing up for training with me. So it's, I can't complain. So don't be bogged down or don't feel discouraged when someone starts kind of presenting you with excuses or objections. Use the information you have, show how much you care about the client and in helping them achieve their goals by using the information from the conversation you had with them that day, right? And allow them to see the value in the service you are providing. That's it. So I hope this information helps you guys out. If you have any other questions or you have any specific stuff you would like to know, leave your questions down below or come join me on Instagram. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. And I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Don't lose hope. Keep on keeping on. It's a great job. It's really worth its rewards in the end. And if there's any way I can help you, know that I'm here for you. All right. Until next time, think strong always, and I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Bye.